Hello and welcome to lecture number 15 of the course Microelectronics Lab. In this module, we are going to give you a laboratory demo of nanoscale thermal characterization with thermoreflectance imaging technique. After a brief introduction of the setup, we will explain different modules of the setup. Then we'll walk you through the software features, which helps controlling the tool. We'll talk about the system calibration, which is very important for precise thermal mapping. We'll then talk about the steady state imaging. Then we'll talk about the transient and the nanosecond timescale imaging. And finally, we'll talk about how to address and how to process the data for precise and accurate analysis.
Welcome to the video session on thermoreflectance imaging measurement introduction. So this tool is called the thermoreflectance imaging tool. This is used to monitor device temperature when devices such as diodes, transistors, resistors are given electrical bias. So when electrical current flows through these semiconductor devices, the temperature of the active area of these devices rise, and this rise in temperature is generally a cause of multiple failures. So a temperature rise by 10 degrees can reduce the mean time to failure of these devices by several orders. So it is very much important that we monitor the temperature evolution in the device active area when electrical bias is applied. This temperature evolution has to be monitored with high accuracy. We have to have spatial resolution of the order of less than a micron. We must need temporal resolutions of the order of 50 to 100 nanoseconds, and this tool exactly offers these specifications. So the basic working principle of the thermoreflectance imaging tool is to monitor the change in reflection from the device surface when electrical excitation generates heat. So when there is a rise in temperature of the device surface, it causes a change in the amount of reflection. This amount of reflection has to be captured, and this here is done by a CCD which is sitting on top of this microscope. So the CCD generally monitors the intensity of reflected light from the active area when the device is not heated up, when it is cool, and it then calculates the change in the intensity of the reflected light pixel by pixel when the device gets heated up. And from this change in reflection intensity, it tries to calculate the temperature. In this process, I'll show you a brief flow of this of how this tool works. So as you can see, light is incident on the device active area, and as heat is generated, the amount of reflected light changes. So the delta R by R is the change in the amount of reflected light for a given temperature delta T. So to estimate delta T from this change in intensity, we need to have something called the thermoreflectance coefficient. So for every measurement, the first thing is to monitor thermoreflectance coefficient. Okay, before getting into how we do this, I will briefly take you through the various elements of the setup. So we have the CCD, as I said, which monitors the intensity of light reflected. We have the probe station, the Faraday cage you can see, which encloses the device to protect it from external electromagnetic radiations. We have these micropositioners which are used to probe into the device. As you can see, a device is being currently probed. We also have a thermocouple to monitor the actual surface temperature and report it to the system. We have a piezoelectric stage. This piezoelectric stage is very important in this whole setup because, as I said, that the thermoreflectance coefficient or the change in temperature is monitored pixel by pixel. So while heating, if the device expands, there might be a chance that the intensity of one pixel is put into the intensity of the neighboring pixel, and that might cause an erroneous result showing that there is a significant rise in temperature. So this is generally called as misalignment. So to avoid misalignment, we need to have this active piezoelectric stage which takes feedback from the image processing tools to correct for thermal expansion, to correct for all the vibrations that might creep into the measurement. This piezoelectric stage also offers X, Y, Z and theta manual movements to enable us to focus properly into the device. So this is the main active region of the setup. We have the controllers present here. We have the LED sources. The LED sources are the ones that shine light on the device and from which we measure reflection. So the LED sources are controlled by this SANJ source module. We have the 3D piezoelectric stage controller sitting here, the SANJ scope module, which you can see is written as 3D nano align. And we have the image processing and all the computational support given by this controller CPU that is present below. So the software modules which would be used for carrying out thermoreflectance imaging, there are two softwares that are mainly used. One is this project manager called SANJ View 6, as you can see here, and the second would be the SANJ Analyzer Plus. So using the project manager, we use to capture the signals using this software module, and after capturing the signals, all the post-processing, all the analysis, corrections and everything is done by this SANJ Analyzer Plus module. So I'll begin with this project manager. So the goal is that we have to shine light on the device and then we have to measure the change in reflection. So here you can see that we have illumination control. So illumination control here controls the LED sources which are used for optical excitation. The LED sources, so the parameters that we can control are the brightness and the wavelength. So this setup comes with multiple wavelength sources, like for example in the UV we have 365 nanometers with a special UV objective of 50x. We also have in the visible range starting from 405 nanometers to 780 nanometers. Currently the image that you are seeing is in UV, using the UV LED. We also have the microscope parameters present here. We can change the magnification. So we have, as seen in the setup, we have 4 objectives. For example, we have 5x, 10x, 20x and 50x. The 50x is a UV specific objective only to be used when I am using the UV LED. The C mount provides no magnification, so it is 1x. So under this 50x objective, you can see something written called distance per pixel. So distance per pixel is here showing 54.7 nanometers. That means that each pixel has an information averaged over a distance of 54.7 nanometers in the device area. We also have the frame rate and the gain factor. Frame rate is the number of CCD frames which is captured per second. One image corresponds to one frame. So for example, now I am currently setting it to 20 frames per second. That means in 1 second I will be taking 20 frames. I have multiple options. I have 35 frames, I have 20 frames, I have 10 frames, 5 and 1. See, as I am going to 1 frame per second, you can see that the exposure has increased. And also you can see the measure of increase in exposure can be seen by this image histogram, which is showing that it is 3000. The count is 3000, which should not be the case. So I quickly lower down my frame rate to 20 frames per second. Another thing, when I am using this UV objective, the frame rate has to be kept at 20 frames per second. Otherwise, when I am using the visible wavelengths, for example, the 405, 530, 625 nanometers, if I use 35 frames per second, that would be sufficient to capture a good image. The gain factor is a digital gain which is provided by this image processing software, which can be set to off, low or high. Again, for this UV measurements, I am using gain factor to be low, but for visible measurements, we need not have any gain factor present because the signals are comparatively brighter when you are using other objectives. So when I load the sample, with the brief introduction to the illumination control and the stages, I'll show here how we have probed the device. So we are using a gallium nitride based resistive structure, and here you can see that the semiconductor die is placed on a heater. So this is a heater which we will be using in calibration. In the calibration module, I'll discuss it in details. The die is sitting on a heater, and this whole thing is held by a chuck vacuum. So this is important because when I am loading the die and when I am doing measurements, I do not want any vibration to disturb the alignment, that the probing setup, because when the devices are probed, if there is a vibration, that might scratch your device. So here you can see 3 knobs are there. These are for the chuck vacuum control. So you can see I've turned on the chuck vacuum, and this is currently holding this the heater and the device. So the micro positioners are used to probe into the sample, and after probing we'll connect the thermocouple, which is this red arm that you can see. This is the thermocouple, which we will land into the die with a specific paste called the thermal paste. So we need this thermal paste because to reduce the thermal barrier resistance between the thermocouple tip and the device surface. So we will apply a very small amount of thermal paste on the tip of this thermocouple, and will slowly land into one of the edges of the device. With the brief introduction to the project manager software module, now we will go into how we are probing this device. So I'll briefly tell you that this microscope has capabilities of moving in the X, Y and Z direction. The XY direction would be to find out the active device which we want to focus, and the Z direction would be to control the to focus on the device active region. So as you can see, currently the device is focused, and we have these micro positioners which is landed into the transistor or the resistor which I want to currently probe. Also we have this thermocouple module. The thermocouple, you can see the red arm which is placed on one of the corners of the die, and while placing the thermocouple we generally apply a very little amount of thermal paste. This thermal paste is required in order to reduce the thermal resistance between the thermocouple tip and the device surface. This thermocouple will measure the surface temperature and will send it to the project manager for further calculations, which I will cover in details in the calibration module. So once I have probed the sample, I will slowly focus back. One more important aspect is that before probing the sample has to be held tightly. So here the sample is placed on a heater, and the sample on the heater stage is being held by chuck vacuum. So these knobs that you can see here, these are for turning on and turning off the chuck vacuum. So I have currently turned on the central port which holds this stage from the center through vacuum. So once we have focused the device active area, before probing, as I said, that we have to turn on the chuck vacuum, and the second thing that we have to do is we have to enable this center stage and enable 3D motion. So that would control the motion of the piezoelectric stage. This has to be done before we probe the device. So when we have focused the device, and before probing, before even landing the thermocouple, we have to do the motion control parameters have to be set. The center stage option has to be enabled, which sets the X, Y, Z values, as you can see, to its home position, which is the center of the range that we have. So it's currently set there. And then we have to enable the 3D motion option, because this 3D motion option would complete the loop, and it would, while the measurement goes on, it would do a live correction of the X, Y, Z parameters to ensure that vibration errors do not creep in. So, and the second thing, when you enable this 3D motion, we have to ensure that there is a clearance between the sample stage, the probe tips and the objective, because this gives an abrupt jerk in order to control the stage. So when all of this has been done, when these options are enabled, we will slowly land the probe tips. Once we land the probe tips, our basic setup is complete. So before going to the next module, we will quickly check the key parameters. First is we have to ensure that the magnification is set properly to the whatever value that you are set here. For example, I'm using 50x, it is set here to 50x. because if we do not set it properly, then this distance per pixel number would be set wrongly. So I may be using 50x, but the software will not have any option. If I set it to 20x, it cannot know that it actually is 50x. So it will do all the calculations according to 20x. So in order to avoid that, we must ensure that whatever objective that we are using is placed here. We'll check that the brightness is sufficient so that this CCD image is proper. CCD image is the device is focused properly in the active region. In this case, this would be my active region. We must also ensure that the proper frame rates and gain factors are set. We must ensure that the center stage option is enabled and 3D motion is enabled. One more thing before I go to the next module, that while focusing, one of the important parameters is this focus level. I'll show you quickly how this focus level changes when the focus is lost. So this is one of the key things that that will help you. So you can, okay, in addition to the illumination control and the motion control checks, I'll show you how to check whether the focusing of the active area is proper or not. One way is to see the CCD image and see okay, it is fine. The other way is that we have this focus level meter, which will show a significant change when we lose focus from the active region. So for example, I will just show you how this focus level meter changes when the device is defocused. So as you can see in the screen, that as I've changed the focus level has, the number has degraded. Initially it was very low and then it has increased, indicating that there is no focus in the active region. So I'll again bring back to focus, and you can see how the focus level changes. So I'm now doing fine movements. So you notice that there is a significant change in the focus level graph. And so once it reaches minima, this indicates that my active region is properly focused. Okay. With these checks, we will now move to the next module, which is calibration. Okay. So the next module that we are going to cover is calibration. So before doing any thermoreflectance measurement for a given material, we must find out what the thermoreflectance coefficient is. As I have told in the introductory part, that the change in reflectivity is proportional to change in temperature by a coefficient called thermoreflectance coefficient. So once we get a new material, our job is to first find out what the thermoreflectance coefficient is at different points in the active region. Because our devices might have metals deposited on them, it might have a passivation or an oxide layer, and then it might have an exposed semiconductor layer. So these different patches will have different thermoreflectance coefficients. So therefore we have to generate a proper map which will have thermoreflectance coefficients for, say, the metal, for the semiconductor, and in this way, which will then be used to find out temperature changes in each and every part of these regions. So what is thermoreflectance coefficient? Thermoreflectance coefficient captures the change in refractive index of the surface of the semiconductor or the metal or the passivation with temperature. So what are the factors on which the thermoreflectance coefficient depends? It is a material parameter. So for a given material, thermoreflectance coefficient would be constant because its refractive index would be constant. So it depends on the illumination wavelength. For a given material, it depends on the illumination wavelength. It depends on the temperature, although it is a weak dependence. In most cases, it is linear over a wide range of temperature, and it has a dependence on the material processing. Like if the surface is very rough, or the surface has globules, or if there is a special coating, that might affect your thermoreflectance coefficient value. So what is the dependence on wavelength? In this graph, you can see we have plotted thermoreflectance coefficient versus wavelength. This yellowish, the orangish yellow, this graph that you can see is for gold. The thermoreflectance coefficient for gold peaks at around 532 nanometers and at around 480 nanometers. So our job is to find out the wavelength at which my sample reflects the maximum amount of light. That is, my sample has maximum thermoreflectance coefficient. So generally for gold, as you can see the peak here, we use 532 nanometers, that is green LED, to capture temperature changes in gold. Similarly for aluminium, I would be using somewhere around 780 to 800 nanometers. For gallium nitride, which is a sample which is probed here, we would be using UV, 365 nanometers. Why? Because this is a wide bandgap device, and if I am using any wavelengths which is higher than 365 nanometers, then light will pass through the sample. None of it will be reflected back. But my goal is to have maximum reflection. That is why I will be using wavelengths near approximately equal to or above the bandgap of the material. So given this aspect, what would be the steps for calculating thermoreflectance coefficient? First of all, I will raise, so what I have to do, if I go back to the formula that is here, to guess this value, I will set a value of delta t. I will set a known value of delta t, and the CCD will measure this delta R by R, change in reflection. So this is measured by the CCD, this is measured by the thermocouple. Delta T would be measured by the thermocouple, and a controlled rise in temperature will be done by a heater. So I will show you when I will focus on the setup, I will show how these parameters are changed. So this delta R by R from the CCD divided by the delta T from the thermocouple will give me a value of thermoreflectance coefficient for a given wavelength. So what would be the steps? I would use the heater, the chip level heater, to raise the temperature to a known value of delta T. I would select a wavelength and I would run my calibration module. From there I would get a particular value of the thermoreflectance coefficient. Then I would again select another wavelength and repeat this whole process. Why? Because I have to find out where this graph maximizes, where the magnitude of C maximizes. So once I do this for each and every wavelength by repeating the steps 2, 3 and 4, I would get my optimum wavelength and the thermoreflectance coefficient values that will be used for actual measurements. This schematic shows how different materials have different thermoreflectance coefficient as discussed. For the gold pads I would be using green LED, and for gallium nitride or for other semiconductors, in this case gallium nitride, I would be using my UV LED. So given this understanding, I will show you in the setup how this is implemented. As discussed in the previous discussion, for calibration measurements, we have to raise the device temperature to a known value. In order to do that, we are using a chip level control heater, which is controlled by electrical bias through a TCAT module. This heater raises the temperature of a device from the room temperature to around 55 degrees centigrade, although this final temperature can be controlled by the amount of current that I pump in. Currently, the amount of current that is pumped in will raise the temperature from room temperature to 55 degrees centigrade. And as I had mentioned in the previous discussions, the thermocouple, which is probed here, will measure the corresponding change in temperature. So with the setup in place, in the software, in the project manager window, you can see this tab called calibration. So we press this and the calibration window opens up. So here there are multiple sub-tabs present. For example, we have this hardware module, we have the timing illumination of the LED module, we have the 3D alignment module, then wavelength series module and other control modules. For this given temperature controller that I have shown, the chip level controller, we did not do any changes here because the amount of current pumped is already fixed and the base temperature is room temperature currently. So we'll directly move on to the timing illumination module. This module controls the amount of time for which the heater stage will be heated up. For example, in this case, we are setting it up to 50 seconds. So the heater stage will be heated up for 50 seconds, during which the CCD will capture image, and this image averages that you are seeing here shows the number of images over which the optical measurement would be repeated, and so here you can see 55 images will be taken to generate one image. So 55 images would be averaged to generate one image. So we also have this brightness module here. The brightness module must be set to auto, because the CCD will then set the brightness to a level wherein it can generate a very good optical image. So this indicator must must turn green for a good image to be generated. So we have set this to auto, and the next thing that we set is the wavelength. So we must check that the wavelength that we had selected in the project manager, which is here, matches with that in the calibration window, which is here 365 nanometers currently. The next thing that we do is a very important step, which is the alignment step. So in this, you can see the left portion shows image auto alignment. Remember, in the first step when I was explaining the components of the project manager software, I had talked about enabling the 3D nano align. So this is aligned, and you can see the X, Y, Z numbers are constantly being updated. So this shows that the stage is trying to adjust to whatever vibration that it is receiving. So this live feedback has to be enabled for proper measurements. So when all this is set, we go to this alignment reference part. Here we have to first see focus ROI. Focus ROI means you have to select a region in which your measurement would be, like the data, the region from where the active data would be obtained. So in my case, here in this device, we have two metal pads, and we want the temperature data or the thermoreflectance coefficient from the region in between them. So I have selected this window, which is my focus ROI. Once this is done, I click this focus ROI enabled. Once this is enabled, the green light turns on. The next thing is that we have to select a unique feature in this device. It may be a scratch, it may be a spot, it may be a sharp edge, because, okay, let me first select this. So I select this, or I could select this region, for example, having multiple features, and I turn the capture reference on. Why is this important? Because capture reference will capture the image and will compare with the previous image and see if these edges have shifted. If the sample is uniform, then a shift cannot be detected. However, if there is a scratch or if there is a corner, then even the slightest shift can be detected by the image processing software. So we should avoid uniform regions. For example, we should avoid this region, we should avoid this region, we should even avoid the region inside this. And we should select regions such as these corners, as we have selected, or this black spot, or any other spot where the shifts can be easily detected. And this capture reference will try to align the image using the piezoelectric stage, and it will generate a score. This alignment score shows how well is this vibration cancelled, or how well the image alignment remains throughout the measurement. So we should increase this as high as possible. In this case, as you can see, the alignment score is 97.5 to 98%. It should be as high as possible. And the alignment percentage, you can see here three options: focus tolerance, alignment percentage, vibration filter. Focus tolerance will not change. We'll go to alignment percentage. We'll make it as high as possible. We'll make it, say, here 97.5%. So what will it do is, if the alignment score goes below the set percentage, it will stop taking measurements. It will wait for the piezoelectric stage to improve the alignment score. So if we set this higher, then all the bad data, all the noisy data will be easily rejected. But if we set this higher, the problem is the measurement time increases a lot. So if you have to make faster measurement, then you should reduce this at the cost of a good measurement. The next stage is the vibration filter. So the vibration filter has to be again kept as low as possible in order to improve the accuracy of the alignment that I have discussed now. So in this case, I have set it as 10. Sometimes you might find that this will not work if it is set so low. You can keep on increasing up to 20, 25, but do not go to much higher value because that will again reduce the accuracy of your measurements. So given these parameters in place, I'll start the calibration by clicking this Start Measurement. So as you can see that the percentage of alignment is less than the value that I have set, and therefore it is red and it is not taking any measurement. So I'll reduce it a little bit. And see it turns green. Okay, so as the measurement goes on, you can see there is a status bar which shows cooling. So in this phase, the device is kept to cool and it is allowed to achieve equilibrium with the room temperature. And after this cooling phase, in the ending part, the CCD will capture an image of this stabilized, cooled system. So you see acquiring cold data. So it has allowed the setup to reach equilibrium with room temperature and it is acquiring a cold data. So once this is done, the device will be heated up. As you can see here on the right hand side bar, the thermocouple is showing some value. It is showing the temperature of the surface as the heater is turned on. So this heating will continue for around 55 seconds, after which the hot image will be captured by the CCD. And this cycle has to be repeated over and over again. I'll show you until and unless the C value, which I'll show in the next bar, stabilizes. So we have to wait for the C bar to C value to stabilize in subsequent cycles. So as you can see, the measurement is going on. The percentage of, if this is completely green, that means the heating cycle is complete, and then it will wait for taking the final measurement. As we can see that the calibration image has been generated. This is the thermoreflectance coefficient map, averaged over 4 cycles now. Each cycle has an average of 55 images and one cycle comprises of the cooling phase, heating phase, then the next cycle again cooling phase, heating phase. As you can see, the third cycle is a bit broader one because the system was waiting for a better alignment. And after these averages, for each and every average, we are monitoring the thermoreflectance coefficient in the active region, and that is being plotted here. As you can see that it started with a value whose magnitude is a bit higher, and then in subsequent runs, this is run 1, run 2, run 3, the value is stabilizing towards a value of around minus 1.35 E minus 3. So this window has to be checked as we do this run for multiple number of times, and we have to wait until and unless this thermoreflectance coefficient stabilizes to a value. We should not stop this measurement after 1 or 2 runs. We should do it for multiple runs and see if the C value stabilizes. So this is an agreement with what is seen in gallium nitride devices. It is of the order of around 1 E minus 3, and the sign must be checked, it is negative. So given this, we have to save this data because this thermoreflectance coefficient map is to be used for further data processing. So to save, we'll go to this left part of the window. You can see save path. We have created a folder wherein you have to select the current folder, as I can show you here, and then you have to click save image and save every cycle. Save every cycle means that for the multiple cycles, so here 5 cycles, for each cycle 1 image would be generated, and that would be saved in this folder. With this, we come to the end of the thermoreflectance calibration module. as we saw that the calibration measurement was going on, and here we see that multiple number of calibration runs have been done, and the calibration image, the thermoreflectance coefficient map has been generated here after 5 or 6 subsequent measurements. Each measurement has average over 55 images. So we can see that we have selected a region of interest here. This region of interest shows the thermoreflectance coefficient of gallium nitride, which is of the order of 1e minus 3, minus 1e minus 3. So how do we know that this coefficient is has the system stabilized or not? To check that, we go to a unit called ROI history, where we monitor the thermoreflectance coefficient from this red marked region, which we can select from this. So if we select this region, we get this region of interest, and we monitor the thermoreflectance coefficient. As you can see here, we are getting, from each and every run, we are getting 1 point. For the first run, we got minus 1.4e minus 3. The second run, it reduced. Third run, it further reduced. Fourth run, it further reduced. And it is following, it appears that the C value is settling to a point. So when we are doing actual measurements, we should allow sufficient number of runs to happen so that this coefficient stabilizes to a particular value. Once this is done, we have to save this image by creating a path here. So we go to this, in the left hand side of the screen, you can see an option called save path. We go there, we create our folder in the D drive as we have created here, and then we select current folder. After selecting current folder, we click on save image. Save image and save every cycle. Save every cycle will save all the subsequent, so if we are running it for 15-16 times, it will save all the 15-16 images. And we can then use the best image for calibration for further data processing. We've already got the calibration images thermoreflectance coefficient maps. We'll now go to the next set of measurements. Before going to that, I'll briefly tell you about from where we will give the electrical signals. So you can see here, this is this black box. It has multiple options. If you can see it clearly, it is written TCAT out, trigger out, DC voltage in, voltage out. So for the calibration module, we were using this TCAT out. So the heater stage that was used during calibration will get its power supply from this wire. So this TCAT out was giving the supply to the heater. Okay. So once calibration is done, we are now going to use trigger out, or we can also use these options. So trigger out has two usages. First is if you want to use an external biasing source, then this system must communicate with that external pulse generator or biasing source. So this trigger out generates a 5-volt pulse to a 50 ohm load to trigger these pulse generators. Also, this has another chopping capability wherein you can feed in DC voltage through a power supply, programmable power supply. With here we can give up to 60 volts and maximum 3 amperes this can tolerate. This voltage will be taken in from the programmable power supply, and it will generate chopped pulses. So it will chop the DC voltage to generate pulses from this voltage out module. So either we can use trigger out to supply 5 volts to our device, we can use this unit, or we can use this trigger out to trigger other pulse generators. With this understanding, we'll now go to the next measurement modules. Okay. So we have covered the calibration module. Now we will go to the measurement module. So from the calibration module, we got the thermoreflectance coefficient. In the measurement, we are going to apply electrical biases, pulse trains, which would be synchronized with the LED sources. And this electrical bias, when the bias is applied, we will get pixel by pixel measurement of delta R by R. And from there, we will get pixel by pixel estimation of delta T. So there are two distinct measurement imaging modes, thermal imaging modes available with this system. First is the steady state imaging. Second is the transient imaging. So first we will cover the steady state thermal imaging. In the steady state imaging module, what we will do is we will set pulse width of electrical excitation, frequency of the pulses, and accordingly the signal generator will generate will turn on the device for the designated duty cycle time. So this is marked by the device on here. Then it will capture the image, then wait for the device to cool down, and then again supply electrical power to the device. So what we have to ensure is that, you can see here cycle 1, cycle 2, cycle 3. So first of all, we need multiple cycles to improve our temperature resolution. A graph to the left shows that as we increase the averaging time, that is as we increase the number of cycles, the temperature resolution reduces to as low as 0.01 degrees centigrade. So it is very essential to have very accurate measurements. We increase the number of cycles. But there is one more thing. To ensure that device heated up during the first cycle, that it does not affect the temperature during the second cycle, we have to ensure that the device off time is significant. So to do that, we generally keep the duty cycle to 10%. So we should keep this as low as possible. Okay, the duty cycle should be very low so that the residual heating from the n-1th cycle must not affect the nth cycle. Okay, with this waveform in mind and with this understanding, we'll go to the software module. So again, we go back to the project manager. In the project manager, we see this imaging module, steady state image module, transient image module. So for the time being, we'll go to the steady state image module. The steady state image module is similar to that of the calibration module. We have this hardware, timing, illumination, 3D alignment, series, GPIB. So we'll again begin with the timing illumination part. So again, similar to the calibration module, we have this device on time, which we have selected as 50 seconds. That means that the device will get an electrical bias, in this case of 5 volts from the trigger output, and this will get 5 volts for around 50 seconds. And then the duty cycle here is set to 50%. We can always lower it down, but for the time being, I'm showing it with 50% only, but we should actually lower it down to a value around 10 to 20%. Okay, similar to the calibration module, we also have this image averages. So again, 55 images per cycle will be taken, and the averaged image will be given out. So we check the wavelength with 365 nanometers. We go to 3D alignment. Again, we select our region of interest, as we have to select the focus ROI, focus region of interest. So we select this window, and we click focus ROI. We'll wait for the button to turn green. Then we again select capture reference. As I have discussed, capture reference we have to select a region with features like edges, spots, and all. So we select the same region and we click on capture reference. With this in place, we'll set the alignment percentage to 97%, because we see that the alignment score is quite good, 98% it is showing. The vibration filter is kept at 10. It should be kept as low as possible, as discussed. Before starting the measurement, we will select a folder where we want to save the data. In this case, I'll keep a folder for steady state imaging. And I'll click current folder. So I now start the measurement by clicking start measurement here. So again, similar to the calibration module, the device will first go through a cooling phase. Then electrical bias will be applied for 50 seconds. During electrical bias, the images will be captured, which will be compared to the cooling images, and then the temperature delta T map. So what we are measuring here is delta T. That is important because we are not measuring absolute temperature, we are measuring temperature rise from the ambient, which we consider as room temperature. To the right, we see ROI measured values. DTC is delta T in centigrades. Second important thing is this CTH. So we can now, for the time being, manually type in the value that we got from the previous result, which is around minus 1.36 E minus 3. We type in here, right hand side below, we see that there is this temperature scale from blue to red. So that temperature scale will adjust as the images come in. In the system status bar, we see that the heating has started. It has turned on. And after this heating is complete, we'll get our first image. So the heating will continue for around 55 seconds, post which in the last part of those 55 seconds, the CCD will capture the heating image. So as the measurement progresses, we have already completed one cycle of measurement. So we can see the steady state image, thermal image being generated. So as we see, electrical current is flowing from one metal pad to other. The active region between the two metal pads have got heated up. And this is a steady state image captured over an excitation of electrical excitation for 50 seconds. So the temperature has gone to as high as 50 degrees centigrade, as you can see from this region, from this focused, the ROI that I have drawn, the region of interest that I have drawn. Now the interesting thing is that we can zoom in. This is a digital zoom, and you can see some small hotspots being generated with temperatures which could be as high as 69 degrees centigrade. So, but these are very small, and these hotspots are important because from these points only the failures get triggered. So this is another capability that we have, that while the measurements are going on, we can zoom in and look at various parts of the device. I'll show you in the processing part that we can generate temperature maps as we are going from one pad to other. We can also generate temperature maps as we're going from the left part to the right side along the width to check for any non-uniformities. So we are saving all these images as I've shown you in this save in the folder. These images will then be combined with the calibration thermoreflectance coefficient map, and then the final processed image will be generated. While I was discussing this, you could see that with subsequent measurements, the image quality is improving, and therefore we should continue this and increase the number of cycles, as I have discussed while I was showing you the slides, that as we increase the number of cycles, the ability to resolve even the smallest temperature rise will improve significantly. So keeping this in mind, we now move on to the next module of transient imaging. So we have already seen how steady state images are being taken. We'll now go to the second module, which is called the transient thermal imaging. Why do we need transient imaging? Because once we apply electrical bias, we would want to see how the temperature evolves in various parts of the device with time, the kinetics of heating, how well the heat is spread out, how well the heat is taken out of the active region. These needs to be analyzed. So in this setup, we need to first understand the waveforms very clearly. So in the figure that I am showing here in the left, we have the CCD, you can see the CCD exposure waveform shown. So this shows one frame of the CCD, so of which we had set in the project manager. We had set the frame rate, right? We had set 30 frames per second, 20 frames per second, 10 frames per second. So that would control how long the CCD frame would be. So in one frame, one image will be generated. So this here shows it's around 33 milliseconds. So inside that, we are giving electrical signals with, say, a pulse width of around 1 milliseconds. So this electrical signal, that means that in one frame we would have multiple excitations. This electrical signal is then synchronized with the LED pulses. So the LED pulse, as I had shown in the beginning, is controlled by a SAN source pulse controller, which will control at what point inside this excitation we need to shine the LED. Why this is important? I'll show. So we can see it from here. Say let us say we apply a voltage. In response to that, we'll have a current. In response to the current, we'll have a temperature evolution of something of this sort. So to monitor each point, we have to sample this temperature waveform. So who does the measurement? The LED pulse does the measurement. So wherever I shine the LED pulse, at that point the measurement will be taken. So in this waveform, if I have to take a measurement at this point, I have to select the delay for this LED pulse in such a way that it shines specifically at this point of the excitation. And therefore, by shifting this delay, by varying this LED pulse delay, we can cover all the points inside this excitation. So for example, we can set the delay to 0 to get the temperature immediately before applying the bias. We can then increase the delay by steps of at least equal to that of the pulse width of the LED. So the step size by which we can shift the LED pulse would be at least equal to the pulse width of the LED. If it is lesser than that, then there would be like information overload, like you would be taking temperature of 1 point multiple times. So we must ensure that the delay step and the LED pulse widths are at least equal, or it is greater than that, the delay step. So now by varying this delay step, we can sweep through this whole waveform and generate a transient. So in this setup, the lowest achievable temporal resolution, that is the fastest feature that we can capture, is 50 nanoseconds. That can be achieved by keeping the duty cycle very low and by keeping the LED pulses of this order of around 50 nanoseconds. That is the best that this tool can achieve. So with this in mind, we go back to our software module. So in the project manager, we click on this transient image. After clicking there, we have this transient image window open here. So we go to the timing illumination parameter, where we will control the pulse width of excitation. So we have set the pulse width to be 100 microseconds. That means that the electrical bias will be applied for 100 microseconds. The duty cycle has been set to 10%. That means that in a period of 1 millisecond, the device will be on for 10%, that is 100 microseconds. And this will repeat at a frequency of 1 kilohertz. The CCD exposure is determined by the frames per second that we have chosen there. The next thing is we select the 3D alignment. So we check whether the 3D alignment is on or not. We must ensure that this is already enabled. Now we again select our region of interest. So we select this region as we have been already selecting. We have already done for the previous modules. So we select this. Then we again select the capture reference, keeping in mind that we have to select some edge features, area with some features like edges and spots. Then we select a folder wherein we want our data to be saved. So that we have already done here. Then before actually doing the transient measurements, we must take an image at a fixed delay. So as I had shown here in this waveform that we can take at multiple delays, we should first take an image at fixed delay to check whether the device excitation is happening or not. So that fixed delay is generally set by the software to be the end of the pulse, or at the beginning. So we can, for this test, we can do for multiple points. I'll just initialize the delay. So we'll to check whether the device gets heated up, we go to this device control tab. We'll set the image delay control to 50 microseconds, which means that for our pulse width that we have selected as 50 microseconds, the image will be taken at the end of the pulse. That means the device should be heated up to its maximum value in that given excitation condition. So we'll click on start measurement. So you see that at the 50th microsecond, the device shows a significant heating. If I select this as a region of interest. Wait. So one more thing is that we have to input the proper thermoreflectance coefficient. As you can see, it was minus 1.36 E minus 3. Oh, it did not get typed. So minus 1.36 E minus 3. Okay, that means it is, the temperature you can see now is 30.4 degrees centigrade for, now I can adjust the scale. Yeah. So this is at the end of 50th microseconds, so that we are assured that the pulses are going properly to the device, and now we can stop this and we can do a series measurement. The series measurement, briefly I repeat, series measurement, what do? We have to vary this delay of this LED pulse. In this condition, as you can, I will show you, the LED pulse width is set as 5.7 microseconds. So if we go to series, we are taking steps of, let's make it 5.7 microseconds, so that we get all the discrete points. We have this starting delay. You can see initialized delay, starting delay, ending delay. So we'll start at the beginning of the pulse, that is 0, and we'll complete the whole heating phase, which is around 50 microseconds, and then we'll go up to the next 450 microseconds to observe the cooling. So we have the starting delay, ending delay, and the delay step. So to start this series from 0, we have to click on this initialize delay. Once we click on initialize delay, the moment the measurement starts, it will start from the starting delay itself. So a brief understanding can be gained from this waveform. So what we are doing is, we are starting from here and we are sweeping this LED pulse delay, LED pulse of 5.7 microseconds. We are sweeping this point in steps of 5.7 microseconds, and we are trying to cover this whole transient. We are basically trying to get samples at each and every time instant. So given everything is set, we now start the transient measurement. Before that, a few more points. In order to improve the image quality, we must increase this average time per frame. So as we increase it, the signal to noise ratio increases, it improves. And you can see something written here as number of delay images per step. So in this whole series that is going to be generated, there would be 99 images per delay step. With these numbers in mind, we now start the series by clicking on Start Series. And you can see here the current, so there is a parameter called current delay, which is going to tell you that at this moment in which you are seeing the thermal image, what is the time axis value. Like now it is, time is set as 0. That means we are monitoring temperature at the 0th microsecond. So you can see the temperature is around 0.5 degrees centigrade. To monitor this temperature rise and fall, we go to this ROI history and we clear this chart, and so here we'll get how the temperature rises with time. So this graph will record at every delay point. See, now we are into 5 microseconds into the pulse and we are already seeing heating up of the device. So this is going to continue for some time, and in each and every point we are getting, for each and every delay step, we are getting multiple images. You can see 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, 0.6, 0.7, each at a particular delay step. So larger these points, the better would be the transient. So this is going to continue until and unless we cover the whole pulse width. So now see, we have now moved to the next pulse width and the device is heated further, the next point, 10 microseconds. This is again reflected by this graph that the temperature is rising. So this is very helpful where we want to monitor how fast a particular region is getting heated. And if we can model this data, then we can get an understanding of the thermal resistances of the stacks present below the active region. And we can then optimize the stacks for better thermal management. So we see one more thing, that from 0, as we go to around 15 microseconds, the rise in temperature has saturated. It is not increasing that fast. So it is somewhat of the graph that we were seeing. It was 0, 5 microseconds, 10 microseconds, 15 microseconds. The rise in temperature has slowed down. So from here we can extract thermal time constants and other important parameters. So we have reached the temperature saturation, as can be seen from this window. And while this measurement goes on, we can quickly probe into the regions. We can do digital zoom to see if the heating is uniform. Here we see that it is almost uniform with small globules present, small temperature hotspots present. But the heating is almost uniform, and it is confined in the region between the two metal pads. So we have scanned through, using the LED pulses, by sweeping the delay, we have scanned through the major part of the transient, starting from 0 microseconds, and you can see the current delay, we have gone up to 260 microseconds. However, please note that the pulse width was 50 microseconds, so we see that in steps of 10 microseconds, the transistor has, the TLM structure of this device has cooled down. So you can see the whole transient from 0, it rises, it saturates, and then it cools down. And then we have given enough duty cycle of 10% so that the device sufficiently cools down. Okay. So now that we have generated our images, thermal images, we have to do analysis of the obtained images. So for that, we go to this software module called SANG Analyzer Plus. In this Analyzer Plus, so the first thing is that we have taken calibration image, and then we have also taken some thermal measurement images. So first thing is that we have to open the calibration image using this open file option. So here we have something called open file. We'll go there. We'll select our place where we have stored our calibration image. For example, we have stored here. We click select folder, and all the calibration images are stored here. We now open our calibration image by clicking on this. So two things open up. The CCD image taken during the measurement opens up, and the calibration image opens, the thermal image opens up here. The main purpose of this is that we have to, before we use the calibration map, we have to correct it for any thermal expansion. To correct it for thermal expansion, we click an option called correct XY. So we click on this option, and the moment we click it, the XY correction is done. So we have to now save this image. To save this calibration map, the corrected calibration map, we go to this option called save images / data. We select our folder, and we select the image format, which is image save format. We go to, it is set to JPG, we go to TTI. TTI is the default format in which the thermoreflectance images are saved. We go there, and then we click on save. Save image current view. The moment this is done, the corrected calibration map is stored. To check whether it has been stored properly or not, we go back to this open file button, we click on this refresh. We see that 10S1, this file has been generated, which is the corrected version of the calibrated image. So now what we have to do is, once the calibration correction has been done, we load a thermal image which we want to analyze. So we load this thermal image which we want to analyze, and we click the first member of the series. Okay. So this is the thermal image which has been taken during measurement. We now want to do a point-by-point calibration matching. So we will go to this option in this window. You see image calibration window. We have three options: point-by-point, coefficient mask, and single coefficient. Single coefficient means you select a region of interest and you manually type in the thermoreflectance coefficient that you have measured. Although this is fine for average for getting like temperature over an average temperature average over a region, but sometimes there may be some non-uniformities in our devices in the active region. So that non-uniformity in the growth of the active region would be reflected in the non-uniformities in the coefficient map. So to get a proper point-by-point temperature map, we need to have a point-by-point thermoreflectance map. That we load here. So we had already corrected the calibration file, which is stored here as 10S1. We click this and we click on load. So we noticed that the calibration file has aligned itself with the thermal image. And now this software has information for each and every point. It knows what is the thermoreflection coefficient, and it also knows what is the delta R by R. So now if we process the series, it can tell you what is the accurate temperature at a particular point. So to analyze the temperatures, we can select up to 5 regions of interest. In the right hand side corner we can select R1, R2, R3, R4, R5. Let us select one region of interest for the time being. So first we click on this option here, which shows region of interest, and then so this rectangular area will take an average. So the rectangular area indicates that it will take an average of temperature within this area. And so you see R1 gets activated here. Now since this is an image series that has been generated by sweeping the delay that I was discussing in the previous module, we have to now process this series, because each point, so you can see here 1_1, 1_2, 1_3, 4, 5, these are all images corresponding to each delta shift in the LED pulse. So we click on the first member of the series and we click on process series. And as we go to the ROI series graph, we would see how temperature evolves with time. And from this we can generate a temperature transient map. So we'll repeat the analysis part on a transistor. We have taken a transient image of a transistor in on state. So as I could briefly repeat the steps. First we'll upload a calibration image. We'll correct it for XY thermal expansion. We'll save that calibration image. So we'll repeat the analysis portion on a transistor transient image that we have captured. So I'll briefly repeat the steps. First we'll load a calibration image from by going to open file, and we'll load a calibration image, and then we'll go to correct XY to account for thermal expansions. Once we do the XY correction, we go to save images. We select the image save format to TTI, and then we save the corrected calibration image. Once that is done, for point-by-point calibration to get a proper temperature map, we'll go to this point-by-point tab. We'll select our file, this TCAT file that is written here, and we will load it. So after this is done, we'll go to the folder where the image series is saved. Image series is nothing but images captured at each LED delay. So you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 72 images are there. We'll click on the first member of the series, and we'll click on process series. Before clicking on process series, as a thermal image loads, we must select a region, a proper region of interest, whose temperature map will be shown here. Let us say we want to monitor multiple regions of interest at a single time. So we'll select another. So we'll select one, then we'll select another, so what we have to do is we have to select control, we have to press control in the keyboard and then select your regions of interest. So we have taken 3 regions. You can see R1, R2, R3, and we are now going to play the series. So as we play the series, in this ROI series graph, corresponding to each color code, for example, region 1, region 2, region 3, you'll get temperature data here plotted. Just a moment. So you can see the region 2, which is closest to the gate finger, gets heated up a lot, and that is reflected in this temperature versus time graph. While this goes on, we can quickly zoom in here, and we can see that the edge has heated up significantly as compared to other parts of the transistor. So this feature allows us to monitor transients at multiple spatial locations. We can now also see that the temperature stabilizes and then decays back to the unexcited, to the value where the device is no more heated up. And from these transients, we can extract various parameters. In addition to this, we can also get thermal cross sections. For example, let us say we select, let's clear all. If you want to clear all the regions of interest, we have to right click and then clear ROI. We go to thermal cross section, and then in the thermal cross section we can select regions in which we want variation in terms of space, x, y. In the ROI series graph, we got in terms of time. In this thermal cross section, we'll get in terms of position. So in this tabs, you see the fourth option is a line. So let's draw a line along the width, and you get the thermal cross section as you go from left to right. So this is temperature along the line as you go along the width of the transistor. We see that the temperature spread is almost uniform. It's 12 degrees centigrade from left to right. We can also get a vertical cross section. We can select this. In the vertical cross section, we see that the temperature, okay, let's first zoom in to get a better, so we can selectively draw the line. Let's draw a line from gate edge to the drain side. And we see in the graph below that how the temperature changes as you're going from the gate side to the drain side. We see that the temperature is as high as 30 degrees near the gate side, and it goes down to 10 degrees centigrade as we go into the middle of the active region. And this we can observe for multiple frames. So we have here 72 frames. We can click on any particular frame and see that at a particular time instant, how is the spatial variation. So there we had at a particular XY region, how is the temporal variation. Here at a particular time instant, how is the spatial variation. You see during the cooling phase, the temperature distribution is almost uniform. Whereas during the heating phase, the temperature distribution is quite non-uniform with confinement near one of the pads. So these two informations are quite helpful. In addition to this, we also have an option in which we can store this series in terms of a video. So for that, to allow the users to have an understanding to, for when you're presenting the data, you might want the users to have a feel of the delay, like the timestamp. So the timestamp, if you click on show delay, the timestamp comes in. If you want to show the color bar, that is the temperature scale, that comes in. Now, with this information in place, you can go to output, make AVI movie. You can go to make AVI movie, go to the file where this series is saved. And then we can click on make AVI. So this will create a movie out of the transient. So once that movie is created, that can always be played back using any standard player. In addition to this, we have advanced processing features like hyperspectral thermoreflectance imaging and other image processing features, where if you want to, using edge filters, low pass filters, you can improve the quality of the image. We also have hyperspectral imaging module, which is used to merge images taken by multiple wavelengths. For example, you take the image, thermal image of a metal by 530 nanometers. You take the active region image by 365 nanometers. Now you want to generate a single image which will have temperature both of the metal pad and as well as that of the active region. This can be done by using the hyperspectral thermoreflectance imaging module. Okay, so this completes the whole process flow of imaging. Okay, in addition to the video that we have saved, if we want to save temperature thermal map image, we have to go to this save images/data. You have to select the folder where you want to save. Then go to image save format. You see multiple options: JPG, BMP, PNG, TIFF. You can select one of them. You can, so while reporting it to any journal or somewhere, you might need a CCD image. So the CCD image has to be saved by this save CCD image option. So that would save the CCD image so that you can refer the actual temperature map whenever you need. So with this option enabled, save CCD image and save the current image will save both the CCD and the thermal image. Okay, so there are two more, there is one more processing option, which is this merge view. Merge view is used to merge the CCD image with the thermal image, and you can control the percentages of each of these components. For example, I can make it CCD rich and thermal image weak, or I can do the reverse. I can keep the CCD image at a lower front and increase the thermal image percentage. So this would help you identify where the hotspots are located, near which pad. Okay, so with this, we come to the end of the whole process flow of thermoreflectance imaging. Okay, this is the ending part. So in conclusion, in this tool, thermoreflectance imaging tool, we have covered how to find out thermoreflectance coefficient, that is a calibration. We generated thermoreflectance coefficient maps. Then we went on to do actual measurements by applying electrical biases, where we did two types of measurements: steady state imaging, transient imaging. Steady state imaging gives us an information of the average temperature over a particular pulse, which is a low frequency imaging technique, where we can get images in pulse widths of 50 seconds or higher, in the order of seconds. To get temporal information, the information of temperature evolution with time, we go to the transient imaging module. In the transient imaging module, we can go to time scales of 50s of nanoseconds with spatial resolutions achievable up to 250 nanometers using 100x objective visible objective that we have. Also, this tool is capable of having a temperature sensitivity of 10 millikelvins when averaged over a sufficiently long cycle. So with these advantages, this tool offers advantage over other thermal imaging techniques, and which will help the device designers to carry out proper thermal management so that their devices do not suffer from thermal issues and related failures. Thank you for patiently hearing out this in this session.